The following video is based on an actual reported encounter. All names have been changed for privacy. In 1991, Beverly was 13 when her parents took her and her 10-year-old sister Diane to stay in her father's co-worker's cabin in southern Ohio. She said they were so excited to explore the secluded woods around the cabin. The first couple days they stayed close to the cabin, but as they became more familiar they decided to explore further. As they were walking, Beverly said she started feeling like something wasn't right. She grabbed Diane's hand to stop her. Diane looked at her, and as she was getting ready to ask what was going on, they heard a loud growl coming from a group of trees and tall shrubs. Still holding hands, they began making their way back to the cabin. They never turned around, but they could hear something following them at a distance. By the time they made it back inside the cabin, Diane was crying. Their mother, Marla, asked what was wrong, and they proceeded to tell her what had occurred. She looked outside, not seeing anything out of the ordinary. She told the girls to stay inside the rest of the day to be safe. That night, Beverly and Diane were laying in bed trying to go to sleep when they heard a howl not too far away. They both sat up, looking at each other, and ran to the window. In the trees, they could see a set of glowing eyes looking back at them. They both gasped and ran to their parents' bedroom. Bursting through the door, both talking at the same time, were trying to tell their parents about the eyes. After a few minutes getting them calmed down, their mom and dad were able to decipher what they were saying. Eli, their dad, grabbed the flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. He stood there looking around for about 5 minutes when he heard movement in the trees. Shining the light in the direction of the sound, he yelled, "Who's there?" No response. He waited another 5 minutes or so, but didn't hear anything else and went back inside. They got the girls back in bed and told them it was probably just an animal and the moonlight made its eyes light up. But Beverly found out later that her dad talked to her mom about being concerned, not knowing what it was. They trusted the girls, knowing they didn't have a history of making things up. Staying close by the next day, they only spent a couple hours outside. Beverly remembers helping her mom make a big dinner that night. That night, they were awoken by the sound of their parents talking, then the front door opening and closing. They got out of bed and saw their mom looking out the window. Walking over to her, she told them to watch quietly. Eli was out on the porch again with the gun and flashlight. He came in after a few minutes, saying it must have ran away. After a few minutes, they all went back to bed. A couple evenings later, they decided to have dinner outside. They played a ring toss game afterward and then started cleaning up from supper. As they were getting ready to go inside, Beverly heard that growl come from behind her. She turned around and screamed at what she saw. At the edge of the tree line, there stood a black figure with glowing eyes. Her mom's voice yelling her name broke her stare at the creature, and she ran to the cabin to her mom at the back door. Yelling Eli's name as she closed the door, then locked it. Beverly said the next morning her parents said they thought it would be best to leave the next day. They spent the day cleaning and packing into the evening. After having pizza for dinner, Eli put most of the luggage in the car. Beverly remembers waking up that night to Diane screaming. She jumped out of bed and ran over to the window where Diane was standing. Outside at the edge of the light stood a creature standing upright on 2 legs, covered in brown fur. Eli and Marla came to their door and the girls pointed to the creature. Weapon in hand, Eli stepped out the back door. Watching out the window, they saw their dad standing on the back deck facing the monster. It began to come toward him, so he pulled the trigger, shooting the creature, causing it to scream out and disappear into the trees. As Eli came back in, he told them to grab everything because they were leaving now. After gathering everything, loading everyone in the car, they drove several miles, stopping at a motel. They stayed the rest of that night and the next there before heading home. Beverly said she and her sister still talk about that trip from time to time and still don't know if it was a werewolf or a dogman. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click like and subscribe to Dreamscape Horrors as there's much more to come.